Finally, we have made it to Lake Itasca, the headwaters of the Mississippi River, not far from Lake Superior and the Great Lakes region of North America. The Itasca State Park was established in 1891, we are told, to preserve remnant stands of virgin pine and to protect the basin around the Mississippi's source. In 1832, Henry Schoolcraft, a geographer, geologist, and ethnologist, was part of an expedition that determined that Lake Itasca was the source of the Mississippi River. He also would appear to have been a Freemason as well. Congress commissioned Schoolcraft to do a comprehensive reference work on the history, culture, and social mores of Indian tribes throughout North America in 1847, and which was published in 6 volumes between 1851 and 1857. This is an interesting finding. Not only did Henry Schoolcraft find the source of the Mississippi River, he himself was likely the source of the new narrative about the indigenous people as well. Now I'm going to compare the Mississippi River and the Nile River in Egypt, and am wondering if there is an inverse mirrored relationship between the Mississippi River region and the Nile River region in Africa. First, there is a straight west to east linear relationship between the location of the Mississippi River Delta and that of the Nile River Delta. The Mississippi River, also known as the Father of Waters, flows southward from Lake Itasca for 2,552 miles, or 4,107 kilometers, to the Mississippi Delta in southeastern Louisiana. The Nile River, also known as the Father of African Rivers, with its 2 major tributaries, the White Nile and the Blue Nile, is 4,130 miles, or 6,650 kilometers long. The source of the White Nile is Lake Victoria, in what is called the Great Lakes region of Central Africa. The source of the Blue Nile is Lake Tana, a sacred lake in Ethiopia, and it joins the White Nile to become the Nile at Khartoum, the capital of Sudan. From Khartoum, the Nile flows northward to the Nile Delta. This is an aerial view of the Mississippi Delta, which is on the southeastern coast of Louisiana on the left, showing many geometric and straight channels, and the same type of straight geometric channels are also found in the Nile Delta. In summary, I am seeing that the ancient advanced global civilization was the Moorish civilization, with its roots in ancient Mu, or Lemuria, and Atlantis, and were the builders of civilization all over the earth, which existed until relatively recent times, much more recently than we can imagine, instead of those attributed false historical narratives we have been taught about who built the world's infrastructure. There were many different empires within one unified, integrated, and harmonious worldwide civilization. I think there was a hostile takeover of the earth by negative beings after a deliberately caused cataclysm involving the earth's grid system that resulted in what has come to be known to us as the mud flood, and that those who created the new world were shovel ready to dig out enough of the original infrastructure to restart civilization. The original order of society was turned upside down, and we have been the subjects of a vast human and social engineering project, not for our best interests, but that of other beings. A sudden cataclysmic event, creating swamps, deserts, and even submerging entire land masses around the earth, would account for how a highly advanced worldwide civilization of giants could be wiped from the face of the earth and erased from our collective memory. Shovel ready to dig out enough of the original infrastructure to restart civilization, you say? I first encountered the Ames Shovel Shop and the Ames brothers when tracking a long-distance alignment starting and ending in Washington, D.C., through Easton, Massachusetts. In 1803, the Ames Shovel Works was established in Easton by Oliver Ames Sr. For point of reference, the year of 1803 was also the same year as the Louisiana Purchase. By the way, I can't help but notice the map of the Washita Empire on the left, roughly corresponding to the map of the Louisiana Purchase on the right. But who are the Washita? The Washita Moors, spelled M-U'-U-R-S, also known as the Ancient Ones and the Mound Builders, still exist to this day and have been recognized by the UN as the oldest indigenous civilization on Earth. But for some reason, the general public has never heard of them. Washita proper, the ancient imperial seat, is in northern Louisiana, in and around Monroe. How come we've never heard anything about the Washita? Quite simply, they don't want us to know. Back to why I think those behind the New World Order were shovel ready to dig things out after their cataclysm. The Ames Shovel Works in Easton became nationally known for providing the shovels for the Union Pacific Railroad, which opened the West. It was said to have been the world's largest supplier of shovels in the 19th century. Why would shovels have been so important for constructing the railroad tracks to open the West? What if the tracks were already there and just needed to be dug out? In 1844, Oliver Sr. transferred the shovel business to his sons, Oliver Jr. and Oakes. The Ames brothers were an interesting pair. Oliver Ames Jr. was also the president of the Union Pacific Railroad from when it met the Central Pacific Railroad in Utah for the completion of the first transcontinental railroad in North America. Oakes was a member of the U.S. Congress House of Representatives from Massachusetts' 2nd District from 1863 to 1873. He is credited by many as being the most important influence in building the Union Pacific portion of the first transcontinental railroad. Oakes was also involved in the Credit Mobilier scandal of 1867 regarding the improper sale of stock of the railroad's construction company. He was formally censured by Congress in 1873 for his involvement, and he died in the same year. He was exonerated by the Massachusetts State Legislature on May 10th of 1883, the 10th anniversary of the completion of the Transcontinental Railroad. I go into depth as to what I think the deliberately caused cataclysm was in my recent conversation with Chad and Adam on the destruction, exploitation, and reverse engineering of the Earth's grid system. But in a nutshell, it came to my awareness years ago in one of the books that I read by Peter Moon, that on the day of the Philadelphia experiment, on July 22nd of 1942, Aleister Crowley, in an act of ceremonial black magic, passed his baby son through the circular megalith at Menantoul in Morvah, Cornwall, that sent a line of energy from there across the ocean that went through Montauk Point at the far eastern tip of Long Island. Not only is there a linear relationship of the Pine Barrens in southeastern Massachusetts, central Long Island, and New Jersey in close proximity to Philadelphia and the naval yard there, that same line can be extended to Morvah in Cornwall, where Menantoul is, all the way to the swamps of Louisiana. There are abandoned trains in Assumption Parish in Louisiana and in the New Jersey Pine Barrens, out in the middle of nowhere, and these and other ruined landscapes along the way. Not only did we see many swamplands along the Serpent Ley with a history of railroad, we saw places like the Indiana Dunes and the city of Gary, Indiana, magically transformed from the dunes of the southern shore of Lake Michigan. I'm going to end this video with this historic portrait of David Farrow, the last king of the Montauk, in a setting of sand dunes. David Farrow lived between 1835 and died on July 18th of 1878. He was buried in the Indian Field Cemetery on the old reservation lands on Montauk Point, next to what today is Montauk State Park and Camp Hero State Park. In 1910, a judge ruled that the Montauks no longer existed as a tribe and were disenfranchised from their ancestral lands, though today the Montauk are actively working towards the reversal of this decision, as well as the revitalization of their language and culture. Camp Hero on Montauk Point is alleged to be the location of the Montauk Project, a series of U.S. government projects with the purpose of developing things like psychological warfare techniques, MKUltra, and time travel research, among others. If all this sounds crazy, remember the old saying, truth is stranger than fiction. We have been taught and told egregious lies from cradle to grave to get us to the upside-down world we live in today.